everybody. Welcome to VHS Massacre Radio. I'm your host, Ken Powell. I'm here by myself today without Mr. Tom Seymour, who just had a vacation and returning. Let me get the audio going here. Fix that. All right, there we go. So he's out today. He's been out on vacation for the last couple of weeks, but I'm here. Today will not be a full-length episode. It's kind of a quick up-to-date about some going-ons and what's to come, mostly. So while we were away for the last couple of weeks, Tom, like I said, he was on his vacation, and I've been here in New York City working on VHS Massacre, the movie, the sequel to the movie, which we are still tentatively calling it VHS Massacres. We haven't decided if we're going to go for a numeral, a number, some kind of catchy subtitle yet. Just currently calling it VHS Massacres. So, a few weeks ago, we had interviewed Debbie Rochon, and she's been working, or had been working hard on Troma's Shitfest, Troma's next big movie, directed by Lloyd Kaufman. When Lloyd directs a movie, it's always kind of an event picture, so to say, borrow a term from Hollywood. Lloyd doesn't direct a whole lot of movies. It's usually a few years in between. So he just finished up with Class of Return to Nukem, Volume 2, and now he's working on Troma's Shitfest. Shitstorm. That's like the third or fourth time I've made that mistake. Shitstorm. And so Debbie Rochon, I've been working on that. And I got invited out to spend a couple hours with Troma as they were working on the movie. Unfortunately, Debbie had already wrapped her scenes, so I didn't get to see Debbie interact with Lloyd or get some more behind the scenes of her. But I did capture some great stuff. They were shooting in Astoria, which is our neck of the woods. Troma's headquarters is actually, I don't know if it's considered Long Island City, probably is, but it's Astoria. That's where they're headquartered. And they were filming quite a few blocks away, like a sketchy part of New York, for Astoria, for sure. But I don't think it would be a Troma movie if they weren't shooting in like some sketchy location. Sorry about that. So I spent a couple hours filming some behind the scenes stuff. Got to see Lloyd a little bit in action. Just capturing some nice B-roll stuff that we can use with the film. We're also in the process of working out some other issues, potential blockbuster things that we're working on right now. Some behind the scenes type things. I don't want to delve into it too much, but we're trying to score a couple more interviews to work on the documentary, pad it out a little bit more. Not pad it out. Blockbuster was a huge part of the first film. The last podcast I talked about the video store being kind of like the beginning of us working on VHS Massacre in a way, because it was like the first video hunt. There was a local store in Astoria. Us going to Blockbuster was like, if there was chapters, it was like kind of the next chapter in working on VHS Massacre when we made that trip with Gerard, Tom, and myself. And so I think, in the process of making the movie, Blockbuster had closed, shuttered. It's completely done. The main headquarters of the big company. What was left is a bunch of different franchises, because that's how Blockbuster had worked. You bought a franchise, and you kind of do what you want with it. And there was like a handful still left by the time we finished the documentary. The one that we filmed out here in New York City had closed, and a few of the other ones. And so as we were working on the pre-production for VHS Massacre 2, another Blockbuster had closed, and it was leaving only one sole location. So we're working on trying to maybe get an interview, or at least be able to shoot something involving that Blockbuster. There's also another documentary in the works about the last remaining Blockbuster. And so we're working on some of those issues, but hopefully we can get something and be able to include it, because it'd be nice to give a last little aside for what happened to Blockbuster, because it was a huge part of the video store era, the VHS. And so, we're working on that. Now, in terms of VHS Massacre Radio, um, this is going to be like maybe the first, because if you guys followed us from New York City, uh, our old podcast, we'd review a movie and we would never, mention it beforehand. Like sometimes there might be a little hint because we post a Facebook question about what maybe the next week's movie was going to be. But usually it was kind of like the, 2 or 3 nights before we'd pick our movie, watch it, do our notes. This is going to be different. I've already watched the movie. Tom's probably in the process of watching it. And I'm going to announce our next podcast movie. We'll be recording next Saturday. And for that, we will be reviewing The Final Sanction, starring Robert Zadar. Yes, I have the VHS copy. I went back there, got Mr. Tim Cooley, I think, who's back there in the back. He was able, kindly enough, to find this movie for me. The Final Sanction. Now, this movie is, I've already watched it. I'm not going to delve too deep into reviews or any of that. It's available on Amazon Prime, which is great, so that you guys are now hearing this being announced. You can go watch it, come back in a week, a little bit more than a week, and check out a review and see if it lines up with your guys' feelings. Like I said, I've already watched it, and so the guy that directed this is the same guy that directed Deadly Prey, and Deadly Prey is up there in, that same pantheon of movies like, Samurai Cop, The Room, Troll 2. To me, it is, if there's a top 10 list of those type of films, Deadly Prey is cracking that top 10 for sure. So The Final Sanction is directed by the same guy that directed Deadly Prey. And it actually stars Mark Pryor, which is the brother of the director from Deadly Prey. So we have Deadly Prey, the main star, Mark Pryor, returning. Well, not returning, because this is not a next installment. But for us, he's back. And Robert Zadar, also a key figure in a lot of the kind of lost or forgotten classic action movies of the 80s. He also was in the, not Deadly Prey, but Samurai Cop. Yeah, you remember him as like the main, when Samurai Cop has the sword fight at the end of the movie, it's with Robert Zadar. Unforgettable chin, face, like this face, a face that they don't use anymore, which is kind of sad. Like I love seeing, like in the 70s and 80s, there was this thing of using kind of, people that had these faces that were unforgettable. They might have not been gracing, Vogue covers or GQ magazine. But they were great actors, great character workers. You don't get as many of those today. Like a lot of character actors today are really beautiful looking people. You don't have your Gene Hackmans and your Robert Zadars. That's right, folks. I am calling Robert Zadar the Gene Hackman of action movies from the 80s. I don't know if there was a Gene Hackman of action movies from the 70s, but Robert Zadar is the Gene Hackman of action movies of the 80s. Yes, and you can put that on the next Final Sanction whenever they make the re-release. Hopefully there's a 4K somewhere in the works. That'd be awesome. But yeah, so Final Sanction, we have the VHS copy right here. You guys, it's available on Amazon Prime. It's not the best quality of transfer. We've seen some other work we reviewed in the last few weeks or prior weeks, like The Bronx Exterminator and some of these other films that had a little bit of love put into the transfers. This, not so much. Still, it's watchable quality for sure. If I was to try to make like a direct comparison of what this movie is, I would say it's Battle Royale meets Rambo, where you have Mark Pryor's character and Robert Zadar's character having a fight for the stakes between the United States and Russia. Yes, two Americans face off for who is number one in world dominance. and a battle royale that involves a lot of machine gun action, some fights, and some explosions. It definitely, like, folks, I enjoyed it. I don't want to give too much away for the review. I got to leave something for Tom and us to talk about, next week. So if you got the time, you want to check it out before we do the review, check out The Final Sanction. You can find it on Amazon, directed by David A. Pryor, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Died a few years ago. And all this information, folks, I'm actually pulling from the VHS Opedia. Yes, I have the 15th edition from 82 to 2018. This baby is current. So from here on out, any kind of factoids that you see me pull out and use is coming from the VHS Lopedia. Don't bother trying to find it on any Amazon shelves, because Amazon has so many shelves. Bookshelves, your local store, your grocery store, you won't find it. I believe I have the only copy. It's a nice leather copy of the VHS Lopedia. So from here on out, whenever we're on VHS Massacre Radio and I'm talking factoids and I'm delivering you news about people's ages or other films that actors were in, or just little weird tidbits, they're being pulled from the VHS Lopedia. So you'll see it make its appearance on VHS Massacre Radio from time to time. And yes, and that's where I found out everything that I know about The Final Sanction, right here in the VHS Lopedia. So that's for next week. And some other things that we have in the works. I can't remember if I talked about it on any of the previous podcasts, but I'm currently working on a video game video review project. It's going to be absolutely less frequent than we do with the podcast, because the podcast is pretty simple turnaround. Though we've added a little extra kink now when we're doing the Twitch streaming. And today I'm even rolling with 3 cameras. Hello, and hello. Yes. The video game / video review is actually going to tell me playing a video game movie and combining it with a review of a movie itself, the movie that the video game was based on. And, the criteria is that the video game had to come at the same time or almost directly after the movie came out. And it can't be the vice versa, where there was a video game and then turned into a movie. There's a lot of stuff to mine, especially from like the 80s, the NES era. Today it's a little less frequent, making a movie tie-in for video games. But you have stuff even on Atari, which we had covered with our Bitrot series that we made with New York City. We covered like Star Wars. I think there were some Indiana Jones games. We never reviewed E.T., but and I don't know if I would do that one. But even Troma has a video game based on their kind of universe. It's from the 2000s, and I've never played it, but I will on this video game series. I don't think it's going to be my first video game. If you've seen my other channel, or maybe it was this channel before, I kind of dipped my toe in it when I played the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves game, which that actually probably will be the first one that I do, because I actually really enjoy playing that game. So, the goal is not to play bad video games and watch bad movies. The hope is to be able to find good stuff, like maybe things that got kind of pushed to the side because it was a video game movie. And, like the tie-ins, it's just have a bad track record. And rightfully so. Like, there's been a lot of trash. E.T. is probably the most well-known story of that. A video game that was rushed out so that they could make it to market for Christmas when it didn't have enough time for developing. And, I even have a personal story. My cousin owned that video game, and I always, liked going over his house to play it. Because it's E.T., and E.T. was a huge part of my childhood, as anybody, any kid from the 80s. Just unstoppable force. Like it was part of all of our childhoods. But this game like drove me crazy, and I thought it was just me. I thought I was just terrible at this video game. So it wasn't, until like, I don't know, over a decade later, maybe closer to 2 decades later, whenever the Angry Video Game Nerd had talked about the game in several of his shows, until he finally actually did a review of it. But when you started seeing YouTube come along and other people would talk about their experiences, and you realize, no, you didn't suck at that game. You might have sucked at some games, but not that game. That game was terrible. And it's so frustrating to be like a 5 or 6 year old kid trying to play this game and thinking like, why can't I do this? Like, why can't I beat this game? And it's just a badly constructed game. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that I'm not going to be reviewing those, hopefully. Now, will 1 or 2 make their way into my hands? Sure. I wouldn't be doing the series justice. But also, in to ensure that the series is done with justice, I'm going to be taking my time, very slow with my time, because not only will we brought back a podcast, which VHS Massacre Radio, working on the movie. And for those that don't know, I teach a class and work at a college at a separate job. So kind of busy. It's hard to fit the time in there, plus being married and all of that entails. So it's going to be hard to fit the series in there. And like, I really want to do the research that, goes with it. Like, I want to find out any backstories I can with the video game, any of the history, stories from developers to marketers to maybe even some of the experiences of you guys that you had with the video game. Try to include it in a nice, good package. That's going to be a little bit different from our podcast format. It's going to be a little bit more, like I say, polish put into it, some actual like editing, in Premiere Pro or something. Yeah, so we have that going on. Then also, I'm thinking about starting a baseball card pack opening series. I don't know if I'm going to include it with our YouTube channel that we have set up for VHS Massacre Radio, or maybe start a separate channel for it. But it's a hobby that I've started picking back up within the last couple of years. Initially, I was going to do a documentary about baseball cards, specifically the Mickey Mantle from 1952 Topps. That's one of the more valuable cards out there, highly sought cards. And while I was researching for this documentary, I started buying baseball cards again and getting into baseball. And it's something that I like, like watching on YouTube. And I think I feel like I can not say necessarily do it better than some people, but I think I can add something that's not out there. So again, that's going to be another series that probably won't be weekly or maybe even bi-weekly. It might be a monthly series, just so that there's enough time and care put into it. It's just something I want to do on the side, with hopes of maybe this will help me revive the Mickey Mantle movie documentary. Like, I really want to work on that. It's just that it was just hard because the Mickey Mantle card sort of kind of blew up in the press again over the last 6 months to a year. It just was consistently back in the news, and a lot of articles were written about it, a lot of pieces covering it, and I kind of lost interest in it because it was being talked about again in a significant way. And when you're, I guess, trying to work in a creative field, you want to kind of feel like not necessarily you're the first one there, but that you're bringing something fresh. And I don't know if anything could be fresh, could be mined out of that right now. So the hopes is that the baseball card documentary will keep me at least moving forward in a positive direction. I'd already shot some stuff for it. So that's what we got going, or that's what I also have going on. And we're going to keep working on VHS Massacre 2. It might be a little slower in terms of how it comes together this time. I think, just because when Tom and I worked on it the first time, we were working together, so we could spend a lot more time throughout the day, like discussing ideas and, being able to kind of go from work to out in the place to work on it now both had two separate jobs where we worked kind of far apart from each other. So, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, I think, in terms of like speed of getting everything that we need together. And I think we really want to like take our time, make sure that we get something that justifies having a sequel, because we don't want to kind of regurgitate anything. Like with the Debbie interview, it's not regurgitation. There's a whole lot of great stuff that she talked about that, and we posted a clip, but I'm telling you, there's a whole lot more stuff out there from Debbie that was helping us actually focus in the documentary, and like all these little different threads that we can travel down. And she gave us such a great start. And like I'm excited because it's going to lead us down some roads that I don't think we covered in the first one, and I don't think has been covered in other documentaries. I still haven't seen all of the VHS documentaries, but I mean, you got to think VHS, so huge, and lasted for so long. Like it was a good 20-something years of of VHS, thinking from like the early 80s all the way up until the mid 2000s, really, of VHS. So there's a lot of things that can be covered in there. And, like I said, our focus is to bring something that wasn't in the last documentary for sure. So we're doing that. We're going to continue working on it. It took us basically 4 years to make the first one. So I'm expecting it probably to take close to 4 years to make the next one. That's just, the reality of making documentaries. So we're probably looking at maybe it's 2018, so 2022, maybe a little sooner. We'll see how these things go. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining me. Like I say, next week we are going to be watching The Final Sanction, starring Mark Pryor and Robert Zadar. You guys can find it absolutely on Amazon Prime. The last bunch of movies we watched are available in some kind of form on Amazon. Most of them were through Prime. A couple of them we had to rent. I think Slime City Massacre we might have had a rent. But this one's free. Check it out. It's a great flick. We'll be back in a week to talk about it, Tom and myself. Like I say, I will have the VHS Lopedia right here. Let's get a good shot of the VHS Lopedia. Right here, folks. I got these 3 cameras set up, so I want to get some good use out of them. Yeah, you don't have to see my mug the whole time. The VHS Lopedia. So I'll be bringing that with me from now on when we're podcasting. Out here in the video store. Everybody, guys can wave back to, I think, Tim Kulik back there. So thanks for joining me. Join us next week. Don't forget to subscribe to our Twitch channel. Don't forget to also, let's go back to camera number two. Here we are. Don't forget to subscribe to our Twitch channel, our YouTube channel. Absolutely, our YouTube channel. We're trying to get over 1,000 subscribers. So you guys can do us a huge favor by just going over there and clicking the subscribe button. You don't even have to watch anything. Would love it if you did, but you don't. That's where we're going to contain the archive from our Twitch channel, because if you guys aren't familiar, Twitch only allows you to keep your videos up for like 14 days if you're not a partner or whatever it is. YouTube, thank goodness, they're available. We can archive these video podcasts. They'll go up there. So if you want to go back, watch them or scrub through them, check them out. They're available there. There's other content. There's a lot of content over there, like a bunch of great interviews we did with New York City Radio, trailers, documentaries. There's lots of great stuff over there. So check that out. Subscribe to the podcast. I think Tom's working on putting us on Spotify now, so we got that going on. There's basically every avenue out there that you guys can listen to us or see us. If you don't like seeing my ugly mug, like I say, listen to the podcast. Anyways, I'm your host, Ken Powell, and check you later.